Welcome back, everybody. It's been a minute since you've heard from me. I don't think I've posted on this channel in about a year. I've been up to some similar stuff, still working on Vade a lot. Some great progress has been made with that, but unfortunately the goal of putting that on the channel as I did it, I had to really focus on working rather than publicizing it. Still in school, still at UNC. And it's actually a new little side project I've been working on with Max. It's they're these hangover pills. We'll talk more about them later. They've got this cool chemical called dihydromycin, but that's relevant right now. I have Max Alway Townsend with me.
Yeah, I'm Max. I ran a startup in high school, raised some money for it. Now I run an AngelList syndicate investment firm, so I invest in early stage startups, seed, Series A, and done about 10 deals in the last 8 months. So,
and that's awesome stuff. And he'll have organize a group of investors that will all invest in the early stage rounds of different companies. And you've invested in a lot of cool companies as well.
Yeah, I'm super excited about a lot of them.
Don't be fooled. Max is actually pretty younger than me. But he's Oh yeah, this is a podcast, by the way. I don't think I explained that. So I've been messing around with the idea of putting a podcast up here one way or another, just kind of following what I'm interested in, like stuff I'm following anyway, like startups, crypto stuff, just general business stuff. And I kind of never got around to it until now. And in terms of structure and everything, I don't really have a name for it yet. There are some names that I'm thinking of, and I figured it would show the casual side of it pretty well if I went into it without a name. So would love your feedback on what a good name here would be. What we're working with so far is New Frontier, Wave Watching, Whale Watch, and Moving Average. Not in love with any of those names. I don't really know if I'll find a name I'm in love with, but let me know what you think. Maybe a different one, maybe one of those. In terms of, I imagine it's only going to be about 15, 20 minutes. Max will probably be a guest most of the time, but I'll
Hope so.
bring random people here. And the whole point is just to kind of talk about cool stuff going on in the last week and have some thoughts about it. So we're going to start with startups. I don't know if we'll always start with startups, but just because Max has a specialized background in startups, I think that's a good place to start. And there's been a lot of cool stuff going on in the startup world. The primary thing I've been using for picking out what to talk about is Strictly VC, if you haven't heard of it. Cool email newsletter. Is that what it's called? Newsletter? Yeah, that they'll just send you in your email all the recent fundings or activities by VCs or startups. Pretty cool stuff. Good way to stay up to date in the industry. And actually the first one we're talking about, rather than just like funding rounds, is kind of a whole industry. So with new media in general, there's been a big increase in VC funding in media companies. The two we have picked out, it's the kind of anomalies in terms of taking a lot of money, are BuzzFeed and Vice. BuzzFeed raised $500 million total, and Vice has raised $1.4 billion. And then the other side of the spectrum would be like Axios and Medium, with $30 million in funding and $130 million in funding total. So they're kind of in different tiers of level of funding. And I think it was a Twitter thread that I was reading this on, but there was this whole discussion going on of if in the media sphere that there is even the possibility of a VC return off of a $1.4 billion investment. Because they'd need like 10x the return, so at least like $14 billion of just their investment, which is 30% of the company.
Oh, yeah.
So could Vice feasibly be a $50 billion company?
Yeah.
And I would argue that like Axios and Medium are probably at the tip of what's feasible in terms of a VC return. I don't think media isn't possible to have a good return. If you invest $30 million in Axios, I bet you can get a great 10x, 15x return. But with BuzzFeed's a great example because BuzzFeed's terrible. They've raised $500 million. That they'd have to be a $10-15 billion company to be a meaningful return for their investors, and BuzzFeed being like a $15-20 billion.
Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of distinction because seed, early stage investors are always looking for the 10 to 1,000x returns, and Vice and BuzzFeed have probably accomplished those returns for the early stage investors right now.
Oh, that's
but
interesting.
Later stage investors who are investing $100 million, like SoftBank does or something like that, into these rounds, aren't really expecting for the 1,000x because that's almost impossible. So they're looking at a little bit smaller returns, but still I do agree with you that and specifically talking about the recent layoffs. You know, BuzzFeed was in the news for that, laying off a lot of employees.
I didn't know that.
Vice as well.
Oh, wow.
Last week.
That's probably what sparked
I thought
that
that's
whole,
why we were talking about it.
No, that makes a ton of sense.
So they actually, yeah, both companies actually
That's
did
why we're talking about this.
pretty
That makes
big
sense.
layoffs last week, and so that's why the debate's been going on. Can they make money? Can they produce enough revenue? I know Refinery 29 is also another pretty big media startup based in New York, raised $125 million. Last year, they laid off 10% of their workforce. That's
You think
pretty
that's
much
like
what BuzzFeed is
automation,
doing
or
right
do you
now.
think that's because when I see like Tesla with their layoffs, I keep thinking like they went with the Model 3 production. They went from very heavily automated production to incorporating human workers a lot, and I feel like layoffs could just be a return to automation. But then I see like my number one rep at Tesla. His name's Ben. He's a great guy. He like the blue Model S I reviewed on this channel a while ago was his. He hooked that up, but like he was the best interaction I've had with any Tesla employee, and like it seems a very disconnected company in terms of who's
Yeah.
making those decisions and what they're doing.
Yeah, but I still think the media is a lot different and relies on they're having trouble finding ways to make money.
Right,
You
right.
see Medium's raised 130 million. You know, they released a way to make money last year. Medium's a popular startup blog people post on. They released like last year, I think, a premium version of Medium that you pay for, and that's how they make money.
And
I'm
what,
not
you, like,
sure
don't
how
get ads, I'm guessing?
successful. Yeah, and you have access to premium content, and I'm not
Paywall,
sure.
wow.
I'm not. Yeah. I'm not sure how successful that is, and a lot of people are saying now, like if you're not the New York Times, if you're not the Wall Street Journal, or if you're not, TV based news station, you're not going to be able to make enough money in this day and age.
Yeah, because you're boiling it down to visitors on a web page, and that doesn't have the lucrativeness that traditional. That's interesting.
I don't know.
It'll be interesting going forward. We'll keep you updated. Next in startups, there's some IPO talks. Pinterest, which I've actually never used Pinterest. It's huge, and everyone uses
It's massive.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Or Visco. Never used Visco either.
they're both good.
Yeah.
Both good sites. Yeah.
Pinterest is they've raised 1.5 billion total, and they're in talks of an IPO with, I think they have Goldman underwriting it later this year. And their last private valuation, so the last time they took an investment, was $12 billion. So I actually don't know how it typically translates to an IPO, like 15 or 20 or something, or would they stay around that range?
I haven't heard too much about what the underwriters are saying. I mean, it's usually higher.
It is?
Like Uber's looking at like 72 billion, I think, to go at it. And
Isn't Lyft going to beat Uber to IPO? I read something about that. I was like, they're just trying to get there first.
I'm not sure. It's really cool. There's a lot of startups getting ready to IPO, which is super exciting for venture capitalists because it's a ton of liquidity. It's a ton of money back in the investors' hands. It's a ton of money back in the hands of early stage employees that usually become angel investors.
Right,
So
those options,
it's really exciting. I know Pinterest, Slack I think they just filed today is what I just read. A
Slack did.
confidential note. Yeah, Airbnb is looking at it. Uber and Lyft are both looking at it. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah,
a
it's a
lot of
big
money
year.
could be flowing back in the community within the next 2 years.
Speaking of employee options in relation to IPOs, Palantir is rumored at least to IPO this year, and recently their internal employee options were like revisited or revalued, I guess, putting Palantir at a $11 billion valuation. Palantir is pretty cool. I know almost nothing about Palantir other than the fact that no one knows anything about Palantir.
Yeah. And the 11 billion valuation is significant because most people were talking about Palantir being valued between like 20, 30 billion, I think. So
Yeah, that's what I thought I
them
read.
coming out talking about 11 billion is pretty significant because
It's surprising.
I mean, it's just confusing because people thought it was worth a lot more.
It could just be like some type of like once it gets in the market, then it's the public determining what the price is.
Yeah,
so it could just
Palantir,
be,
I think is thinking about IPO.
could just be underdogging it, so then it gets boosted up. I've thought a lot about that. Like, if you were going to IPO a company, would you rather put the price above what it is and then hope that it still settles above what it really is worth, or would you go lower?
Like after first couple of days of trading, or
like right away? Like would you? Yeah. Like in those first couple of days, it would stabilize. Like what's the best way to set yourself up?
I mean,
right?
I don't know. If you're founders and if you're in the company, I think you want to go for the highest valuation you can get people to pay for. Because think about it, on day one, most of the people in that company are liquidating.
Yeah, and those initial purchases are just funding to the company, but any secondary market stuff is like just between.
Well, the secondaries are always before, but the public, the IPO valuation you're gonna get is the best valuation you'll probably ever see.
Right.
So most people, the founders, are selling a lot of shares on the second it's open.
Yeah.
And you make a lot of money off that generally. Also, something I think is significant talking about the IPOs and kind of the startup market is the rise of direct listings. Spotify did it last year.
Isn't Slack doing that this year?
They're thinking about it, and I think a lot of startups are now thinking about it. It's a lot cheaper. You don't need an underwriter. And I think it's specifically working for these brands because they're consumer focused and extremely well known. Like when Spotify did it, everybody knows Spotify.
They don't need an underwriter.
They don't need promotion. They don't need people investment bankers selling their shares. So Airbnb could easily do that. Uber could easily do that. Slack, second maybe Lyft could easily do it.
I like that model. I mean, like banks are legacy institutions, and Bitcoin's taking over the world. So I'm a huge Bitcoin advocate now. By the way, I got really into like crypto in general, and we'll talk more about crypto, but specifically Bitcoin and financial markets and that system side. I've gotten very, very into, and it's cool stuff. I really actually believe in Bitcoin, but I'm also self-aware that it's kind of a joke to be like, oh, go Bitcoin. It's going to grow. It's going to explode. No, it's probably going to go down in price for a little bit. Nobody's saying it's going to go up. All the guys on Twitter that like really know what they're talking about, whether it's like a technical analysis guy or like Pomp, who's more qualitative, but also uses a lot of indicators. Everyone's like, no, it's going to get so much worse.
Yeah. So big rounds and we finish startups?
Yeah. Okay. So for this one at least, there's some really big rounds in the last one. I mean, there's kind of always big rounds going around, but like 9-figure, 100, 1 million, 2 million, 100 million or more in terms of funding. There's a lot going on with some cool brands. The first is Acorns, which is that app that allows you, like when you're making a purchase, it'll round it up to the next dollar and then invest that spare change. They raised $105 million in Series E funding. That's a lot of money. Anything on Acorns? I've never used it.
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's just significant because it's just there's been a huge rise in products that make it easier for people to invest. Over the last couple of years, Robinhood, super easy to invest. Acorns, a lot of other savings apps like Acorns, investing your spare change or making it easier for you to save money. I think it's really cool. Even at the seed stage now, I'm seeing a lot of early stage companies, especially in developing countries in Chile, other parts of South America, in countries in Africa and Southeast Asia, making it easier for people to invest as those countries become more mobile first and have more access to technology.
I did a whole project on India's like their smartphone saturation and their populations are really just
So there's a company called Grow, a seed stage company that's launched in India and make it really easy for people to invest. Titan, making it easy, giving hedge fund access to the public. Titan. Super cool stuff like that. And Acorn is one of the leaders along with Robinhood.
Fintech, man. Fintech's a cool industry.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess even an industry. I guess is.
Yeah.
Hims raised $100 million at $1 billion valuation. I actually don't know that much about Hims, but you know a lot about Hims, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just kind of a men's health and wellness company. They're kind of expanding into a lot more products now. I think they started with sexual wellness.
So are they in the ship like regular? Are they the ED company? That are like, get your ED drugs
I'm not sure if they started with that, but
I get a lot of those ads. I don't know if that's like targeting or something.
They've gotten big with that, and they're expanding into a lot more products right now. So really exciting. It came out of Atomic VC, an awesome, unique firm. They actually incubate all their companies instead of investing in them. I'm a big fan of Atomic. They're one of the pioneer funds in that style proved that it could be a successful model of venture capital, and now a lot of other people are following. So it's very cool.
Which is, I mean, there's some similarities there to like Y Combinator, right?
Yeah,
like Y Combinator always does those follow-on investments to their stars.
Yeah, no, Atomic is awesome, and you know, I just love when people are unique and add new styles to venture capital.
Of course. Clutter, which they help you like get stuff like move out, I think, in New York.
It's just a temporary storage on demand.
Oh, wow, I was way off with that. They're raising $200 to $250 million from SoftBank, which is why I'm mentioning it, because I think SoftBank, whenever they make a move, they I don't know if you've seen Billions. That's to the viewers. I know you haven't seen Billions, but you should. It's cool to see in that show they give a really unique perspective on macro moves in markets. I mean, it's a hedge fund guy, and it's all fake, of course, but they give that idea of like if you're when you're making an investment, you're not just giving a company money or something, like you're actually impacting a larger system of players interacting in an industry. And the reason I like SoftBank so much, other than Masayoshi Son being just a total beast, is that when they come in, like they just invested in ParkJockey, and that's another parking technology company. They invested $1 billion into them, literally so they could just buy a bunch of parking lots, like these huge parking lot companies, and then use that technology to generate more revenue. So like when SoftBank makes an investment, it's almost like a whole new level of strategic investment where they're like, we're going to give you so much money you can move a mountain and then change the industry with that. I think that stuff's cool. I like SoftBank.
Yeah, they're dope. Clutter, kind of similar to what I was talking about in Acorn, kind of just showing a burst in that industry. There's a lot of on-demand storage companies that have been popping up, marketplaces. I know some early stage ones, one specifically in New York that's pretty cool. Verto, I think that's how you say it, but just
the original was like 1-800 storage, right? Those like.
Well, yeah, but this is the technology wave, making it 10 times better, bringing it online.
Put it on that. Stripe raised another $100 million. Their valuation's now at $22 billion. I think this was just a follow-on investment, like an additional investment on their last round. I don't actually have something too specific to say about Stripe, but I think it was Square. That when Square, their valuation has like almost doubled in the last year. And that happens to coincide with Square incorporating Bitcoin in some way. I mean, of course, their valuation actually increasing is because of growth and value as a company. However, it did happen to line up with when they incorporated Bitcoin, and now they're worth twice as much. Bitcoin, it's the future.
Just ICO like kicked it. Yeah, no, I'm really bullish on Stripe. I think they're awesome, going to grow a lot bigger. They have so many other
They're the, like when you're on any website and you have to log into a bank, that's Stripe, right?
I think that might be Plaid. Stripe is
Plaid. You're right.
Stripe is just the essentially when you pay for something on most websites, you're probably using Stripe. Like
that
when you
stuff
just
is
enter
awesome.
your card information.
That like they're literally just they build up like Stripe, Plaid, and even Square that like
you don't even notice.
Yeah, and there are billion-dollar companies that we built that are 100% dependent on them, that are only possible because of what they achieved. We're just chilling there. Like,
it's amazing.
We don't need people to know our name. We'll just be worth.
So Stripe isn't even extremely saturated internationally. They have so much more room to grow in that. And they also just have so many little niches in the fintech industry that they can go into and just basically control automatically. So I'm extremely bullish on them. I think they'll 4x the valuation easily.
In like a year?
Or? Not in a year, but I
maybe
think
if they start using Bitcoin.
Maybe not 4x, double. 3x probably.
Because based on Square incorporating Bitcoin and doubling, if Stripe did it, Stripe probably already also has some crypto and blockchain.
I think they actually were accepting it for a little bit, but then they disabled it for some reason. I don't know if they brought it back, but
it's probably still too volatile to be used too often as a medium of exchange, but it's getting there. I mean, right now it's going pretty sideways, but that's not necessarily a good sign. All right, so on crypto, I'll probably talk mostly about this. I'm super into crypto. So Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates launched a cryptocurrency between the two of them. It's called the Aber, A-B-E-R. And it's for the sole purpose of making remittances between the two countries easier, which all of blockchain and like Bitcoin, if you're advertising it as a global currency, one of its biggest advantages is that if the United States has to pay Russia for something, or that's a terrible example, but if two countries have to pay each other for something, right now that's extremely hard to do. You have to have exchange rates settled upon, and then you have to actually give them the money. There's a lot in the process. Where that was a terrible explanation, but with blockchain and Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies made for this, it's a lot easier to send the money. It's instant. There's no fees associated with it. You don't really need to worry about exchange rates because it's a currency in itself. So it makes that entire realm a lot simpler. But it also, so they get to sell it and be like, all right, we created this cryptocurrency for the single use case of remittances between these two countries. But it also happens to be invulnerable to sanctions imposed by forces like the United States. The United States couldn't go and shut down the Aber because it's a cryptocurrency. It's not within the realm of control of the United States. So that's a huge traction on their part. And I think this is going to be the start of like some dominoes. And as different countries adopt crypto, they're going to be like, oh, this is good stuff. And Putin, he was even talking about crypto at one point. Well, not specifically, but he was referencing something like it. Crypto's cool. And then lastly, in the crypto realm, is Facebook. So if you have heard of Facebook Research, I'm sure you have. It's been all over the internet in the last week. Facebook Research was an app where they would pay users and like gift cards to get all of their data. Rather than just like some of the data, they would just get all of it. And they were very clear about what data they're collecting. It was a whole like specific onboarding process, so they weren't like secretly doing anything. But this is interesting because with blockchain and crypto as a whole, one of the big things that people are advertising about it is that it'll allow you to monitor and control your data and who has access to your data. So you could give permission to certain companies to give permission to access your data that you have on a blockchain. And that way you can control and monetize the monetization of your data by other companies. And the reason I find this very interesting is that not only was Facebook doing this like controlled trial of paying people to get full access to their data, but they're also considering launching a cryptocurrency themselves for use on their platforms, which would be instantly the largest reaching currency or financial services company in the world if they did that. But if they paired those two things, then suddenly you have the king of data, the king of personal data that's selling your data, launching a cryptocurrency that could potentially actually build a system where you do have more control over your data. So I wouldn't count Facebook fully out.
Well, no, I know they've been building a decent sized blockchain team. Very secretive, no idea what they're doing, but they have a lot of people on a blockchain team at Facebook. Do you have any issue with them paying for that data?
No. I mean, I think that's like the separation. There's the onboarding is because they were very clear. Here, move this couch forward. Cool. They were very clear about what data they were collecting, and I think because of that, it's perfectly fine. It was an exchange of data for money and gift cards, and that's completely fair and fine. At a large mass scale, though, the existing system is terms and conditions, which you're never going to read through. So how that's going to scale, that onboarding, to being able to really understand what your data is, who's going to use it, and what they're going to sell it for, that'll be an interesting future. But I do think, honestly, that's kind of what Facebook's inching towards, and they could save themselves a little bit in the next 5 years or so. All right, so done with crypto. Onto business, and these we'll probably go through pretty quickly with these. So still on Facebook, they're combining Messenger, WhatsApp, and Instagram, at least like the back end of those messaging services, with end-to-end encryption that's currently on WhatsApp, but across all the platforms. Interesting moves, I guess. You know, like Facebook, the platform itself has like no growth now because they've saturated the whole world. But they're trying to further monetize the users they do have, and on their other platforms that are way more successful than Facebook is now. Anyway, I saw something about like Facebook inflating their user growth, which I think is interesting. But as a company, if you're reporting your user growth in your Facebook, you do own Instagram and WhatsApp. So in some ways, I guess you can inflate. I don't know. But yeah, Facebook's doing that. A lot of Facebook stuff.
Yeah. I really like how Facebook like just constantly creates new products and iterates. And I mean, a lot fail. Like, I think they tried to do a dating thing kind of recently, and
really
they've tried pretty much everything. They've released a lot of products, and yeah, they were gonna try to go against Tinder. I don't know if they released it yet or if it just failed quickly. But
does Match own Tinder, or is Tinder still independent?
Match owns Tinder.
Huh. Do they own Bumble? Sponsored by Tinder and Bumble.
Wait. Does Match own Tinder?
They might not own All Out. They definitely have a stake, for sure.
Yeah. But sorry, you got me. Actually, I'm not 100% certain that Match owns Tinder, but I don't know. I think it's really cool. Even if this Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram combo doesn't work out, it's awesome that they're a really large scale company, constantly iterating and doing these new products. Because a lot of
focusing
companies,
on privacy.
a lot of companies just don't do it. I don't know if they're great at privacy, but at least they're iterating.
They're trying.
Yeah.
And the last 2 points are pretty quick. The mobile industry has been pretty interesting recently. Obviously, Apple reported some poorer performance than expected in Q4. Also lowered their expectations for Q1. Interesting to see what Apple does, because similar to Facebook, their iPhone has kind of saturated the whole world. Like, there's not, other than China, there's really not many markets for them to penetrate. They can't really further penetrate most of the markets they're in. So where they're going to move from that, I don't doubt Apple in the slightest, but where they'll go is interesting. Huawei, the Chinese phone manufacturer, now has sights to be the biggest phone manufacturer with Apple's recent decline or slight decline, which I think is interesting because anything with Huawei, like there's a government rule. Did you tell me this? There's like a government rule where you can't use a Huawei phone in a United States government facility because China has backdoors in all of their stuff that you literally can't use a Huawei phone in a United States like government building.
That's crazy.
So like, they should probably do something about that. China's crazy, dude. 10-second like face identification of anyone in the population or everyone. That's crazy. And then lastly, on the phone note, Energizer's making a phone. I imagine you guys saw this. Foldable screen, 18,000 milliamp hour battery. That's like 5 times a regular phone. Energizer. And then lastly, Amazon. This is just literally a financial breakdown. They released their numbers for 2018. They had $3 billion in profit in 2018 compared to $1.8 billion in 2017. Their AWS, which the internet runs on, that revenue increased 45% from 2017 to 2018. That's $7.5 billion of revenue for AWS. But they also lowered expectations for Q1 2019. I would never begin to doubt Amazon, but it's interesting that they lowered expectations there.
AWS revenue is just going to keep growing. The internet's still growing.
What was that last year when like AWS went down? Like every website didn't work for like 3 hours.
Yeah, Netflix, everybody.
Imagine. That's crazy.
So the AWS revenue is going to keep growing. I will not doubt Amazon. They just keep innovating, keep growing, keep doing amazing
Bezos
stuff.
has that long-term vision.
Automated stores, automated delivery.
Are you team Bezos or Musk?
I don't think you have to be a team on this.
Yes, you do. Pick a
Whoa.
side. Pick a side.
Your team Bezos over Musk?
Of course, absolutely. Bezos is the man. He's the man. He's literally 10 times more successful than Musk, just at a face value.
Yeah,
but also just
Musk
like...
is so cool. He's like one of the coolest guys on the planet.
He's also like insane. And
Yeah,
like...
but that's... We just...
unstable. Like you can be... Although, here I am hyping up Bezos. He had some recent negative press with his wife. Or ex-wife, I suppose. But I don't know. I feel like Musk is more of a moonshot guy, and Bezos is more of a...
kind of like moonshots.
I'm going to build...
But you can't bet it. Elon will say what he's going to do, and no one in the world will believe him, and then he will do it.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Well, like, Elon
That's
gets all the hype
insane.
for SpaceX, but Bezos did Blue Origin first. And, like, maybe not as good, but he did it first. That's it for the Unnamed podcast. Need your feedback on 1, the name, 2, the length. I don't know. I might cut out a part or 2, but I feel like this is pretty long.
It's probably 25 or 30.
I do like longer because, like, the more it's a bunch of cool stuff. We're not focusing too much on any individual topics, but let me know if, like, I'm thinking this is something you could just, like, casually listen to, so it doesn't really, maybe longer is better. Let me know about that. Structure-wise, like, topics we cover, things we talk about. I didn't want this to be, like, a news reporting podcast, which is why you don't see, like, articles popping up on the screen, or, like, we're not too heavy in, like, the statistics, or this person said this and this person said this. Let me know if you guys like that. Maybe if you want it more article-centric, could do that. I also don't want to link articles in the description. That would suck. Yeah, but that's it. Help me out with a name. Good to be back. Probably have another one up next week or so. It's a weekly thing. Not with a specific day, but it's a weekly thing. Yeah, cool. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.